A new poll has revealed deep divisions within Britain's ruling Conservative Party. Today on the show, we turn our attention to Madagascar, a nation at a crossroads. The president has been impeached and the military has stepped in, seizing control of the government. And now the island nation faces a volatile and uncertain new chapter. We ask the question, what does this mean for democracy in the region? This is The Conversation. I'm Darshan Usman. But first, beyond the continent. Hello and welcome. A new poll has revealed deep divisions within Britain's ruling Conservative Party, with nearly half of members saying they want Prime Minister Kemi Badenoch out before the next election. Now, according to a YouGov survey reported by Sky News, 50% of party members said Badenoch should not lead the Tories into the next poll, while 46% backed her. The findings leave former Minister Robert Jenrick as the members' preferred choice ahead of Badenoch and other senior figures, including Boris Johnson and Priti Patel. Despite the setback, Badenoch is hoping this week's party conference in Manchester will help steady her leadership. Now, the poll also shows strong support for an electoral pact with Reform UK, an idea Badenoch has firmly rejected. Away from that, NATO's newest members, Finland and Sweden, say they will purchase more US weapons to send to Ukraine as foreign military aid to Kyiv continues to decline. The move is part of NATO's new plan to coordinate monthly deliveries of major weapon packages, each worth around $500 million to support Ukraine's defense against Russia. Officials say European stockpiles are now nearly depleted, leaving the United States as Ukraine's main supplier of arms and air defense systems.
NATO is a defensive alliance. We will remain a defensive alliance, but make no mistake. This defensive alliance is ready and willing to do what it takes to keep our 1 billion people safe and our territory secure. Today, ministers reaffirmed that we are increasing investment in defense, enhancing defense production, and stepping up our support to Ukraine. Our military has the tools and authorities required to do the job, and we continue to train and to adapt as needed. We don't engage in tit-for-tat exchanges, but we can and do take necessary steps to defend and protect our own, to increase costs on those who might test us, and to make clear to any potential adversary.
Moving away from that, fresh fighting broke out along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border early on Wednesday, with each side accusing the other of initiating deadly clashes. Pakistan's military said its forces had killed 20 Afghan Taliban and injured many in Spin-Boldak border district. A Taliban government spokesman said 12 Afghan civilians had been killed and more than 100 wounded by Pakistani firing. Numerous Pakistani soldiers had been killed, he added. None of the deaths could be independently confirmed. Now, violence between the neighbors has fled since explosions rocked Afghanistan last week, which Kabul blamed on Islamabad. The Taliban denies claims that it is harboring militants targeting Pakistan.
یو بل حضرت الله ولو د دوا اوان رالي د افغانستان د خاصه د طالبان د خاصه اوان رالي مشفقور کې ومشتي د دوا الخوان را زخمیان کړ حضرت الله کوټله واساوي د غسترګ لګیدل د ډیر خوش دی او د دې داخله
کله چې جنگ شروع سلو د ګولې د تراله هم د دیوالونو خراب کړو د خدای لار چې اسکول سټیر کړو کني ډیر کښینه مې خوش کړی ولې د ډیر کښینه دي د ګولې د دیوالونو میوالونو د سر خراب کړو ډیر غټه کې وکی خلک ډیر سره وبېروله
रात से हमारी इमरजेंसी डिक्लेयर हुई है। बॉर्डर पे हालात कशीदा हो गए, पाकिस्तान और अफगानिस्तान के दरमियान जंग छिड़ गई है। वक्तन फवक्तन फायरिंग का सिलसिला रात से चल रहा है, गोलाबारी और फायरिंग रात से चल रही है और कैजुअलिटीज आना हमें तकरीबन सुबह 6 बजे से कैजुअलिटीज आना स्टार्ट हो गए। हमारे पास इस वक्त 6 कैजुअलिटीज आ चुकी हैं, जिसमें से एक को बुलेट इंजरी थी एब्डोमेन एरिया में थी, उसको हम लोगों ने फर्स्ट एड दे के चेस्ट ट्यूब पास करके स्टेबल करके क्वेटा रेफर कर दिया। बाकी जो 5 पेशेंट थे उनको हम लोगों ने ऑब्जर्वेशन के लिए अपने वार्ड में रख दिया। अभी उनको मजीद उनका सिटी स्कैन वगैरह की जरूरत है, जिनको 1-2 पेशेंट को मजीद।
And finally, in the Middle East, U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that the U.S. will forcibly disarm Hamas if the group falls or fails to surrender its weapons within what he called a reasonable period of time. Now, Trump's threats come as reports emerge of public executions and crackdowns by Hamas fighters in Gaza just days after the U.S. brokered ceasefire took effect.
Will it take Hamas to disarm, and can you guarantee that is going to happen?
Well, they're going to disarm, and because they said they were going to disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them.
How will you do that?
I don't have to explain that to you. But if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. They know I'm not playing games. But we have told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently. But they will disarm. Do you understand me?
Yes. You say
because you always, everyone says, oh, well, they won't disarm. They will disarm. And I spoke to Hamas, and I said, you're going to disarm, right? Yes, sir, we're going to disarm. That's what they told me. They will disarm, or we will disarm them. Got it?
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump's intervention in the Gaza ceasefire has been described by diplomats as decisive, but not yet a roadmap to peace. Trump returned to Washington, D.C. this week to lead efforts to stabilize the truce, but tensions are already re-emerging. Israel accuses Hamas of failing to honor its commitments, while hardliners in Tel Aviv insist that only military pressure will bring results. Diplomats say the ceasefire's survival will depend on tight implementation and the willingness of both sides to compromise. Well, joining us to discuss more on this is Ejike Okpa, Global Affairs Analyst in Texas, U.S. Thank you so much, Mr. Okpa, for joining us at this time.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, speak to us. Was Trump's intervention in the Gaza ceasefire a genuine diplomatic effort or a strategic political maneuver? What do you think?
He's the president, so anything he does has a political implication as to what happens after this deal has been done is up in the air. I want to give this example. It's like a wedding. You go in, everybody's excited, and everybody does a toast, and then does it mean the relationship is not going to break up or a divorce is not down the road? We don't know. Just like even having a child, everybody celebrates the arrival, and then how does that child perform when they are an adult or a teenager? So what I'm saying is that let us take this one step at a time. There's a peace deal that has been struck. Now let's see what Hamas is going to do. Mr. President said, reasonable time. Even in law, what is a reasonable time? A time has to have a specific time to it before it makes any sense. Is it 1 year, 6 months? But if you say reasonable, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. Given what Hamas people have to go in and internally go through in order to come back and say, okay, we're going to surrender our arms. And for us to do that, this is what we want in return. But for now, let's not preempt anything and just celebrate what has happened, because, everybody before Trump tried to get this thing done, he couldn't, he did it. And so, bravo to him. But again, it's no guarantee, because, human factor and human beings have a way of going back, and then they come up with something else to disrupt what every one of us may have thought is a stable situation.
So what do you think that, was he able to secure the peace this time? Because what we're hearing, as soon as he left Hamas, it's like they went back to status quo. So do you think that he was able to secure it this time, seeing that the peace deal eluded him during his first term as president?
Again, Trump is not God, he's a human being. When he was in office, he did what he could, and somebody else came after him. That person didn't even do anything. And now he comes back in less than 1 year he's in office. He's done what most American presidents couldn't do, even if they had a second term. And so, yes, it's a secure peace deal. But again, like I said earlier, human beings have a way of going back and trying to disrupt or upset what everybody thought was a deal. So if Hamas, in their own wisdom, don't think this is something that they want to embrace and want to do something. The warning has already been issued to them. If you don't do this, something else is going to happen. Because, sometimes you have to carry the stick, and when you carry the stick, don't make it look like this is a carrot. You're going to whack somebody. You're going to hit them hard. And when you hit them hard, then they will know that, we're not horsing around like we say in Texas. Let's quit horsing around. Life have been wasted. Properties have been destroyed. People that are even surviving the war have emotional scars that you don't even know how long it would take them to come back to senses. So, I mean, why is this something that we all have to, embrace in 21st century? We shouldn't. What's the bone of contention here? What are we fighting for? That we can come to terms and agree, no winner, no loser. You don't have to love me, but can you tolerate me? Can I tolerate you? That is how life is. We don't have to love everybody. Everybody don't have to love us. But the Hamas and Hezbollah and Israeli, I am hoping and I'm wishing that they come to terms with themselves, because it's a difficult situation, and we have to respect each person's concerns and wishes. But at the same time, when you don't have what it takes to really sustain a fight, it's to your best interest, to surrender and move on.
Okay. Now, let's look at the outcomes, emerging from the ceasefire. Ejike, do they lay the groundwork for any sustainable peace process at all? I know you did say that the president is not God, so he has done the best that he could do, especially for the people on the ground in Gaza. Does it lay any groundwork at all?
He has, he has built a foundation, or he's laid a foundation that every other thing can be put on that foundation. And I'm hoping the foundation is strong enough to carry whatever else is going to be put on it. But remember, human beings are not static. They are not like concrete. When you cast it, it can come back in time and it's still standing. But human beings can go there, things change in their mind, and circumstances drive them to even go against what they've earlier on agreed to. So it's up to the Hamas. They are the ones losing in this game of conflict. They are the ones losing. Israel has lost, but the Hamas people, the Palestinians and Hamas, have suffered the biggest loss. And I hope their leaders are looking at this and even turning to their people and saying, you know what, there is no path to success here. I mean, we can be fighting all our life. Then what is the pathway to success? What are we going to get out of this? And how are we going to be able to do it ourselves without other people? Because you know what? In this conflict, some people are making money. The Hamas are not the ones manufacturing the weapons. Some people are selling it to them. And some people are funding them. But why don't you use those resources to fund them to live a good life, as opposed to exposing them to danger? I mean, you see the video. I mean, thank God for instant messaging in today's technology world. We see this stuff, and it is very, very, very upsetting and very, very unsettling. And, I don't live there. I will never go to that part of the world, but I'm hoping that the human beings that live there, pull back and said, enough of this. Let's find a way to love, tolerate each other without loving each other.
Okay. Now, speak to us, sir. Does the inclusion of Hamas from the proposed Palestinian governance model undermine the legitimacy of the peace framework at all, since Trump has actually said that Hamas, and I quote, that Hamas will be forced to disarm, or we will disarm them?
Well, I think, I think Hamas, in whatever format, they should be included in the discussion, because again, if you can have your enemy closer, or have your enemy at the same dining table, you could see what it is, their table manners, you could see what it is, they are eating and what you're eating, and hopefully that will tell you some more other things. Body language is important, so don't exclude them, bring them as much closer as you can, and say, hey, what do you guys really want? And if they're being unreasonable, then you let them know, what you're asking for cannot be done, and this is what we're going to do. And this is where we say, if you don't do this, remember the operative word here is if you don't do this here, this is how much time we are giving and then we're going to come after you. Everybody who, even parents, if you don't set boundaries with your own kids, they're going to run wild, they're going to run amok. You're going to have to come back and say, hey, I can tolerate you behaving in this way within this parameter, but if you go beyond this, I'm your father, I'm your mom, I'm the one that is the authority figure over here, I'm going to whack you. And then the kids, you know what, they're going to listen. But if you let them loose, then they do whatever they do. So, like in statistics, you come back to what is the median, what's the standard deviation, okay? But you have to calculate the median first, and then you say, yes, we can go -5, -5, +5 here. But when you start going -25 to 50 to what we agreed to, then they said the best are off, and we're going to do what we want to do. So, set the parameter and give them the time to digest it, and then also know that's consequences for bad behavior.
So in setting the parameters and giving them time to disarm this, does it mean that the disarmament clause, for Hamas in the signed peace deal represents a realistic path to long-term stability? Does it mean that?
Yes, because, Hamas is going to be, again, it has always going to be two people to conflict. So they are the weaker part of this conflict, even though they have sympathies and people supporting them. But at the end of the day, when somebody's body is cut, it's not water coming out of it, it's blood. And so somebody who is supporting you, that is remote, encouraging you, cheering you on, they're not going to be in front line taking the bullets and getting maimed. So you got to come back and say, hey, I'm a human being, I have pain, and I'm going to cut out of this pain in order to live a life. Again, since Israel was formed or founded in 1948 to date, you do the math, is decades away. And then we still don't have a peace in the part of the world where, again, apologies to the Christians and believers, Jesus was born, and when he died, and they still don't have peace. Come on. If God is watching these and Jesus is as powerful as they say he is, send everybody a text message to calm them down and tell them, hey, these are human beings. If you switch them around, you wouldn't even tell who a Palestinian is and who Israeli is. It's just that we have national levels. And because of those national levels, we behave in a certain way. If you strip everybody of the clothing and shave their head and everything, we are going to look alike. But somehow we have come to have boundaries, we have come to have resentments over each other, and that is what's causing the conflict. But beneath all of that is a human factor that we oftentimes overlook and neglect, and that's why we're always fighting.
Okay, so just before we let you go now, even though we know what it's looking like, it's not looking like there's going to be some form of stability, but is it possible that the ceasefire brokered under crisis conditions may evolve into a durable peace months from now?
Exactly, durable, evolving. Again, the key word there is evolve.
Yeah.
Okay, so for something to evolve, the human beings to whatever that decision is have to also evolve with it. Because, it's just that you signed a paper and everybody cheers and everybody toasts doesn't really mean anything. The human factor, again, in the factors of production, in the simplest form of economics, is the human factor. The machine don't do anything on the human factor acts on it. The earth don't produce a whole lot of things that we're going to need on the human factor acts on it. So the human factor is the critical factor. And how do you get to that critical factor? Is a better understanding, and then also the economic principles of, what are you willing to give up in order to get something? You can never have everything you want in life. Anybody who does that is setting themselves up for disappointment, and they would also be very frustrated. I'm saying Hamas, the Israelis, come to terms and sustain this agreement, so that prosperity is necessary. When you have peace, that's just the offshoot of peace is prosperity. But if you're in a constant agitation, you can't even go to sleep and have rest. Because you're always agitated, you're always on your toes, you're always turning your head to see who's behind you, who's beside you, and all that kind of stuff. Human beings are way. I don't think that's what God intended in giving us life. But again, God is up there watching it and saying, this is up to you guys. If you can't take care of it, too bad. Because he ain't going to come and give anybody a third hand or a second head or a third foot. He is not doing that. He is calling on us human beings to look each other in the eyes and come to terms on how to really live peacefully. I don't talk about love. I'm talking about tolerance. Tolerate each other. You don't necessarily have to love each other, and give every human being the dignity to live as to the best of their abilities, provided their ability is not interfering with your own way. I mean, love thy neighbor, fine, but geez.
Okay.
Can I tolerate my level?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ejike Okpa, Global Affairs Analyst, for joining us and speaking on this.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Well, that's our take on Beyond the Continent. While Gaza grapples with the aftermath of war and the fragile hope of reconciliation, Madagascar faces a different kind of upheaval. The political ground has shifted dramatically. Following the president's impeachment, the military has seized control, plunging the island nation into a new phase of uncertainty. Both stories, though worlds apart, echo a common theme, and that's the volatility of political transitions and the high stakes of leadership in times of crisis. So whether through negotiated ceasefires or abrupt regime shifts, the question remains, who holds power and at what cost? Stay tuned for more in-depth conversation on this after the break.